Hello and welcome to this Joyful Minds video recorded as part of the January 2021 Joyful Minds Transformation Summit. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more and drop your thoughts and comments in the section below. Okay, so hi Joyful Minds community. I am joined today by Robert Stevenson. Hello Robert.
Hey, how you doing, Sarah?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us. So, for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time, I'll just say a few words about myself. So, I'm Sarah Watts. I am a transformational coach and founder of Joyful Minds. Founded Joyful Minds last year, and I offer individual coaching, group coaching, retreats, and women's circles. And this week we have a transformational summit across the week, showcasing a number of different tools and techniques for giving you any inspiration and giving you an opportunity to explore further any tools that you feel resonate with you. And so all of the topics across this week interest me. And transformational coaching is a big one. I trained with Animas Centre of Coaching last year on the ICF accredited diploma in transformational coaching. And I could think of no better person to invite to talk to me about transformational coaching than you, Robert. So thank you so much for being here. Let me give
Well,
you an introduction.
cool. Okay.
Okay, so Robert's the Centre Director for Animas Centre of Coaching, and Robert manages and supports the leadership team across the globe, ensuring quality training that serves the needs of our Animas Centre for Coaching, coaches in training. With a background that has roots in performance and theatre, Robert's journey to life coaching and training has taken him along a path of varied experiences and learning. Whilst Robert has an incredibly rich background prior to coaching, working with young people in schools and nurseries, he is also involved with the different aspects of higher educational institutions. He's worked on degrees at several universities, running a module in theatre and education at Essex University, as well as contributing work to Anglia Ruskin's Masters in Education and the Arts. Robert has been on an incredible journey of self-development and consistently expanded both his training and coaching skills, initially training as an NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist. Robert went on to pass his diploma in transformational coaching before adding a number of other accredited coach training courses to his toolkit, including David Drake's narrative coaching and Simon Weston's analytic network coaching. And you've trained, you do the training for the diploma in transformational coaching, and also have trained in group coaching and youth coaching. So a whole spectrum there.
There's a lot there, isn't there?
The journey so far.
Indeed, indeed. It kind of makes it's whenever I hear that sort of an introduction, I sort of have flashbacks to all those different places that I've worked and the different groups that I've worked with in those sort of different times. It's always really kind of interesting. Go, oh yeah, I did that. Oh wow, I've forgotten about that.
Yes. And isn't it wonderful how when we talk about the uniqueness of being us, you, me, it is all of the melting pots of all of that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure,
yeah.
for sure, yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget how unique and individual we are. We get a little bit caught up in same or comparison, and don't kind of recognize that uniqueness of our individual experience and environment, backgrounds, personality. That's the kind of the rich tapestry that makes up us,
Mhm.
and that allows us to be so interesting and interested in others. I just dropped my headphones, so I'm just going to reach down and pick them up.
There's definitely some technological weirdness going on around the place at the moment. I know, I know a
Somebody
lot of
did tell
people.
me that there's a something in retrograde, which means tech stuff is getting crazy. So that'll be part of it.
Yeah, that's true for me. I had a power outage in here. This is my garden office um, at the start of the week, which threw me into a spin. I'm gonna be honest, but it's up and running now, so it's all good. So Robert, let's start by just breaking some things down.
Mm,
I know so my background is in HR, and so when I spoke to HR colleagues and said, coaching is the direction I'm going in, they understood what that meant. But I still felt that people didn't really know what the difference is between transformational coaching and some other kinds. And it feels like there's every label of coaching that you could think of.
Mm.
But also, friends and family who didn't have a HR background, kind of looked at me with sort of oh, yes, I've heard of coaching, but they weren't really clear what it was. So, for those listeners amongst us, I know we do have
Yeah.
some coaches in our community, but it would just be helpful. So let's talk about what's coaching and what's transformational
Yeah.
coaching.
Okay. And I guess I want to premise this by saying that, if you Google coaching, you're going to get so many different answers. And if you ask coaches, you're going to get different answers as well. So fundamentally, I suppose when we think about what coaching is, we're creating a space, a non-judgmental space where somebody can explore their goals. What is it that they want to achieve? And the coach would ask questions of that person to help them think about what it is they want to achieve and how they're going to go about achieving it. Now, in classic coaching, it's very goal orientated. It's very much about what is it you want to do? Where do you want to get to? And how are you going to do that? What are your options? What are your ways forward to making that happen? And when we start thinking about transformational coaching, we start to bring in a much more humanistic element to it. That's not to say that that doesn't exist in other coaching modalities, but when we think about transformational coaching, we're sort of going, but who is this human here in front of me and what is going on for them? And if we also explore that, how does that shift or change the thing that they want to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
We start to explore, how is our thinking about ourselves and the world around us impacting our desire to achieve that goal or that shift or that change. We also start to explore the kind of the world that we're living in. So what's our paradigm? What's our beliefs, our thoughts, our behaviors, our habits that exist in our state right now, and how are they enabling us to think about this thing that we want to do or this challenge that we have? And if we shift that paradigm, if we shift our way of thinking, our way of seeing the world or seeing ourselves, how does that change the thing that we want to achieve? Or how does that change how we think about it? So when we're talking about transformational coaching, we're sort of working both on the exterior, but we're also working on the interior. We're working with our feelings, our state, our thinking, and looking at how are these things impacting how we're showing up in the world. So that's, I guess, a kind of an exploration of what it is. And when we're working in a transformational way, we're not just focused on the goal, we're focused on the person. So, when I work with business coaches, they're very much focused on, so what is the thing you need to do to make the business do what you want it to do?
Mm-hmm.
And to an extent, they're not really interested in how I'm feeling that day or what's going on for me in that moment. Whereas a transformational coach is going, but how you're showing up right now is impacting how you're showing up in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And what's going on for you right now, you might have a goal, a thing you want to achieve, but what's happening for you right now is going to impact your ability or your agency to move towards that thing. So we need to deal with that as well as helping you move towards what it is you want to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, I really like that explanation, because what lands for me is that, our results, our goals are focused around our results, but we can't make changes to those unless we track it all the way back,
Mm.
how we show up, as you say, and really the thoughts and feelings that we're having that are impacting on our way of showing up. I guess, most people wouldn't enlist the help of a coach without having a goal in mind. So it gives us that aim, that focus to go forwards, but we have to go within, don't we?
Yeah, and sometimes people hire a coach with the sole goal of wanting change. So going,
Mm.
I don't know what I want to change or how I want it to change. I just know I don't want it to be like this. So
Mm.
that sense of stuckness, and whether that's stuck in work or relationship or environment, that idea that there should be something else, or I feel like there's more
Mm.
to the world than I'm currently experiencing. Let me work with a coach to uncover what that more might be, to
Mm.
unlock what my purpose might be, or really tune into what my desire is. I think one of the the great things about working with a coach is that sense of non-judgmentalness.
Mm.
So you can speak without fear in that space. No one's going to judge you or ridicule you or make fun of you in that space. You know, we might say to our friends, I'm thinking of becoming a coach, and they'll have an opinion about that. But a coach doesn't have an opinion about it. They're interested in your opinion about it, not anybody else's. And I think there's something really interesting when we sit in that space and reflect on what is it we want and what do we think about that, as opposed to what does somebody else think about it.
Yes, and there's something so powerful about saying our thoughts out loud,
Mm,
isn't there? And
mm.
just then hearing them.
Yeah, yeah. And, often we have dreams and desires that we keep locked in.
Mm,
And when we vocalize them, we give them energy, we give them power, we hear them back, and we can then make a choice about moving them forward.
mm,
When they're just in our heads, they can just get stuck there. And I
mhm,
think one of the things that coaching allows is for things to be externalized and then to be looked at outside of ourselves, and then choices to be made about what is it I want to do with that. Because sometimes we have a dream that is just a dream, and we don't have a desire to make a change with it. We just want to think about it. But sometimes we really want to do it.
mhm,
And we need somebody to help tease it out of us, and for us to sort of face it, and also to
mhm,
face the our perceived obstacles
mhm,
around doing it. So we go, oh, all right, I thought that was in the way. I thought that was stopping me. But now I can see there's a way past that or through that.
yes, absolutely. So let's talk about what's involved in transformational coaching and how is that different from other types and styles of coaching?
Yeah, I suppose it's very similar to what I've said. I guess when you're thinking about a transformational approach, you're thinking a very holistic approach. So you are, as you said, not just focused on the result that somebody's getting, but you're also focused on how they're getting that result. You're also focused on or exploring, is that result the actual thing?
Mm,
So often when somebody comes to see a coach, they go, this is what I want to do. And a transformational coach is listening to all of the clues that present themselves in the Q&A of coaching, to see, is that really what they want to do, or is that just an indicator of what they want to do? Is that just a part of what they want to do? So how might we uncover what sits underneath that? So what's the drive to do that? What's the meaning behind what it is you want to do? What are the values that sit with what you want to do? And when you think transformationally, you're looking at all of these elements to see, so how does that shift somebody?
mhm,
What are the values? As I said, your values, your thoughts, your feelings, your desires, your wants. What are all those components?
mm,
And how might meeting your needs allow this goal to either drop away or to be met?
mhm,
The idea of exploring with somebody, how do they need to show up? What is it that they need to do or step into in order to allow that to happen? So that sense of what's your being, how are you showing up as a human being, as it were,
mhm,
that's blocking or opening that thing to merge into the space for you?
mm.
Not sure if I completely answered your question. Throw it to me again.
Yeah, no, I think yeah. So basically, it's about what's involved. You know, for someone who
Mm,
might be thinking about transformational coaching, what might they expect, and how might it
yeah.
be a different way of coaching than perhaps other coaching?
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot more reflection in transformational coaching. Because you really want the client to hear themselves
Mhm,
and hear what they're saying back into the space, and to reflect upon that. There'd be work around visualization
mhm,
in the transformational space. There's a process called future pacing that's often used, where we think about the thing that we want to achieve, and we travel forward in time in our imagination to when we've achieved it, to really sink into that sensation of what it's like to having achieved it. And then we sort of look back in time to see what were the things that we needed to have done in order to get there.
mhm,
So a bit of sort of reverse planning, as it were. The other thing that sort of sits with transformational coaching is the work of people like Carl Rogers and Nancy Klein, that kind of thinking space
Mm,
time, and meeting somebody where they are. So not having this expectation of where your client should be, but going, where are you? And let's start there.
mm, mm,
And really listening to you. So a transformational coach will work really hard not to interrupt you, to allow you the space and the time to explore your thoughts and your thinking um, openly, whether that's vocally or just in your own head, without interrupting that flow. So they don't have a direction of where they want you to get to. They're
mm,
following your direction and your space. So I guess part of what happens in transformational coaching is there's the thing you want to achieve, and then we're going, but what sits underneath all of that? And
mm,
let's look at all of that stuff as well. Let's look at who you are, your beliefs, your values, your experiences, and
mm,
let's unpick some of that stuff. Your limiting beliefs. What are those thoughts that
mm,
you have that hold you back? Those things that you believe to be true about yourself, which aren't necessarily true. That we might be able to challenge or unpick, or find evidence to counter and go, oh yeah, I thought that about myself, but when I think about it, that's not true of me. So okay,
mm,
what else is not true? And then by kind of bringing that catalog together, we can start going, right, so this is what I want to achieve, and now I know all these things I thought I wouldn't be able to do, I've already done them in other parts of my life. I can bring that learning into this space to enable myself to move forward and do
mm,
it. So I guess part of it is about how we get out of our own ways to achieve what we want to
mm.
achieve.
Yes, absolutely. And what resonated with me from what you've said there is really about the awareness. It's shining that light on what's really going on, and just broadening our perception of the situation from, just following what we kind of naturally habitual patterns, and way of thinking or way of seeing something. And it's just broadening that whole horizon of what's
Mm,
really going on.
yeah,
And in that
yeah.
awareness is the nuggets.
Mm, mm. Because it's it's really interesting, because sometimes people think about transformational coaching as like, big things are going to happen, and these big shifts and personality changes, and giving up your job and moving to Australia or whatever that might be. But transformation can be really small, and transformation is only relevant to the person it's happening to. So you can't go, my transformation is similar to yours, or bigger or less than. It's like transformation is transformation, and it can happen in really small moments and tiny changes, but it can also be huge changes. And I think sometimes people, both coaches and people that go to coaching, have this idea that it's got to be big to mean something,
Mm.
but actually it can be really small and have a huge ripple effect in one's life.
Mm, yes. And what is it, do you think, about transformational coaching that makes it so powerful?
I guess it's partly the that sense of allowing you to be you and helping you work out who you are.
Mm,
Often when I'm working with my coachees or my clients, um, we start with what is it you would like to get from this work? But often what we start exploring is, so who are we showing up as in this world? And are we okay with that?
mm,
Are we aligned to that? And if not, what do we want to do about it? And
mm,
then the coaching space can become the experimental space to go, well, how do I want to be in the world?
mm,
And what is it I really want from from my life, I
mm,
guess. And I guess transformational coaching is also that bigger coaching that goes, well, what is your life? What do you want from your life? Not just what do you want to achieve with your job or your next goal, but as a life, what do you want? And how can you be courageous and brave in
mm.
striving forward to experience the life that you want to live?
Yeah, I love that. It's something I feel really passionately about. My mission is really around trying to help people to live congruently with their
Mm,
own, with themselves, their heart, their desires, their dreams, Because so often we feel constrained and, like we can only do these things, and we put these limits and we take out some of those possibilities for a number of different reasons. But, it's about finding your heart and then living
Mm.
congruent with your heart. I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah, and we can recognize that some of those limitations are environmental. The spaces in which we live or which we exist can place limits on what we believe we can achieve and what we can do. We can recognize through our schooling we will have this. We can recognize through our family environment we will have these ideas placed upon us about what is possible.
Mm.
And I guess part of transformational coaching, part of all coaching, I guess, is asking that question. But what could be possible,
Yeah.
and how might you explore those what ifs and those maybes to see where they go and where they take you, and
Mm.
how do you begin to chip away at that ceiling that you've placed above yourself, or not even chip away, how do you just go out the other side? That's what's really interesting. Sometimes people go, I've got to get through this. And so, well, maybe you can just transcend it. Maybe there isn't a through that you need to do. There's a completely another way of thinking about it, so that block no longer exists.
Yeah, brilliant. Can you think of, or what is your biggest successful story that you've witnessed as a result of transformational coaching? Can you bring it to life for us?
It's really interesting. So when I think about that, I sort of go, there are moments where that are very simple things where somebody's just gone, oh, I don't need to do that anymore.
Mm.
And that's been, completely transformed their life, their sense of self, where they've gone, I can choose. And I think that's a huge thing about coaching, is it's going that we are making choices.
Mm.
And are we aware of the choices that we're making? And when we become more aware of the choices that we're making, we can then choose other choices.
Mm.
And so I think a fundamental thing for me or a big shift is when somebody kind of just goes, I can choose differently. I'm going to choose differently. And then watching that ripple through their lives, whether it's I choose to show up at work differently,
Mm.
which then leads to a promotion, which then leads to somebody going, actually, I don't actually want to do this job anymore, which then leads to them setting up their own business and doing the thing that they want to do.
Mm.
So there's that kind of shift. There's also, I guess, that where somebody goes from a an unhappy space where they're sort of going, life's not great and I don't feel good about life, but I'm stuck here,
Mm.
to a place of loving life. So an example was I worked with somebody who hated their job and was like, I just want to get a new job. This is just it's all bad, but all really related to work. And through sort of exploring what is it that they wanted, and this idea of travel and freedom,
Mm.
um, they started to recognize that their job actually allowed them to travel, because it gave them an income that allowed them to then go and travel. And then they started to go, well, actually, if I think about my job as the supplier for this freedom, then I can really embrace my job, because I know that, if I do this amount of overtime, I
Mm.
can go on holiday there, or I can have an adventure over there. I can take a couple of days off and I can do a short trip to somewhere. And all of a sudden, this thing of hating their job shifted, because at first they thought their job was constricting them
Mm.
from living this life. But then they started to think about, well, actually, it could be fuel for me to live that life. So what is it that I need to do to really embrace that as fuel to live my life? And now they love their job
Mm.
and they're really happy, because they go, in 6 months' time, well, right now we're not going anywhere, but at the time they were going, 6 months' time, I'm going to go here, or I'm going to do this. I'm going to work extra because I've got this big thing that I want to do. My job's fueling that. And so they found, I guess, the alignment to their job through rethinking
Mm.
it and thinking about the structure of work and what it meant for them.
Yeah, that's so incredible, isn't it? We were talking as well in one of the other sessions about labels, and the labels that we place on things, the definitions that we have, generate an emotion in us.
Mm,
And so when we do start to look at things differently, we start to feel differently about it. And in
yeah,
that case, that person is taking action differently as a result of
yeah,
that.
absolutely. Because labels, I guess labels are the frameworks of the boxes that we keep ourselves stuck within.
Mm-hmm.
And when we start to dismantle those labels, we start to dismantle those boxes. And
Mm,
sometimes those labels are useful. They can be helpful for us um, to recognize each other, to recognize our groups or our tribes. But it's when they become unuseful.
mm,
Um, if you're an athlete, having that label of athlete can be really useful to you during your athletic years, as it were. But as you start to transition out of that, still being referred to as an athlete, it might be challenging for you because you can't do what you once did.
mhm,
And so then you have to kind of shift, how do I see myself? What do I call myself?
mm,
And then what does that then mean for me and how people treat me? And that then creates a change. So labels, whilst they have their uses, they're also the confines that we create. And it's like, how do we strip them away or rethink of them?
mm, mm. Yeah. And the other thing you said there that resonated with me as well was this sort of concept of taking responsibility, So taking responsibility for our choices, and realizing that we are able to impact on our lives in a way much greater than most of us. Um, the human condition leads us to believe. And it feels as though, taking that self responsibility is one of those key ingredients to really making a change in your life.
Yeah, because one of the things that coaching really brings about is ownership. It's like you own the choices that you're making.
Mm,
So, uh, you know, at school, you're told, or at work, you might be told to do something. So you do it, and that's it. But
mm,
when somebody says, what is it that you want to do? And you can really own that,
mm,
there is a drive to making that happen. That autonomy around it is creates a desire, a passion, a motivation that allows something to take place as opposed to when we are told to do something. So coaching really creates that space that says, what is it that you want?
mhm,
And you are responsible for making that happen. There might be circumstances that get in the way at times or that challenge it or that we have to find a way through,
mm,
but we're responsible for it. And
mm,
so how do we show up when we're responsible for it? Because it's um when somebody gets a pet for the first time and they're told that they are responsible for that pet and they really own that responsibility, we can see a shift in how somebody behaves. I've seen it with children
mm,
when I worked in schools, and a teacher would say, right, we're going to get a class pets, but we need to be responsible for it and we need to look after it. All of a sudden you see them taking on this caring role where they're going, right, this is important, and we are bought into it being important. And that's another one of those things that's so important about coaching is we need to be bought into it. In order for it to work, we need to want this thing. Sometimes when we're sent to coaching, um, we go, oh, I'm just going to do it because I'm here. But it's like, don't just do it because you've been sent. Find out what you can get from it
mm,
and go for it. Don't kind of do coaching. I met people that have gone, yeah, I've got a coach, because it kind of gets them off the hook of taking responsibility, because they kind of faux responsibility by going, yeah, I've got a coach and I'm doing some work. You're like, are you really doing some work? Are you being challenged? Because a coach is going to, a great coach is going to challenge you
mm,
as well as support you. And I think, in that transformational space, you need that challenge. You can't just sit with it as a, yeah, I'm going to do that. Well, are you going to do that? Do you really want to do that? Is that really important to you? Or are you just saying that because you think that's what I want to hear, or you think that's what the world wants to hear?
yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Investing in ourselves, not just by, letting ourselves off the hook by saying we have a coach, but doing the work, because it's the
Mm,
work that's going to make the change.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think sometimes people don't. they kind of think the coach is going to do the work. They think, when I first started coaching, and I had some clients, and I remember this lady saying, "This is much more hard work than I thought it was going to be." I was like, "What did you think was going to happen?" They were like, "I thought you were just kind of going to make it happen somehow."
Mm,
I was like, "Yeah, but I'm not you." I mean, that one of the tenets of coaching is that the coachee or the client is an expert in themselves. They
mm,
know how they operate. They know what motivates them and doesn't. So I can't tell you how to do it, because I can only do it. I can only tell you my way of doing it, or the ways that I've read of doing it.
mm.
But in coaching, we can pull out what's your way of doing
Yeah.
it, and then explore. Okay, so if that's your way, how are we going to put that into action?
I love that. And I love the idea of it sort of unfolding organically.
Mm,
Like what you were saying earlier, in that, it's the client that leads, and the coach that kind of works with that leading. And we were talking at the start of this week around the hero's journey. And I mentioned
mm,
around sort of following the breadcrumbs. We don't always know where they're going to lead us. And
yeah,
if you think
yeah,
about the heroes in those stories, they might not have set off on those journeys if they knew quite what was involved.
absolutely.
It's only when we look back that we see how far we've come.
Yeah, and I'm a great lover of the hero's journey, and Joseph Campbell's work, and this idea to get quiet enough to hear the call, get quiet enough to hear the whisper. I remember Ishik, who is does some work with us here at Animus, talking about how do we get quiet to hear those whispers that live within us.
Mm,
And I think that the coaching space also allows that to happen, allows that stillness to take place. We can kind of hear what that calling might be for us to kind of step into the world and do. And, sometimes we'll be doing it, as you said, without any idea of where it's going to take us and where it's going to lead to. Just the sense of that it's important to do right now.
mhm,
And we just go, okay, well, let's just go with that right now and see where that does leave us. I'm a great believer in saying yes to things,
mm.
because you don't know where they're going to take you.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, we can't say yes to everything, and we need to be mindful of that pleasing others mindset. But when the opportunities come your way, where you can say, okay, yeah, let me take that and see what I can do with that, see where that's going to take me, see what new journey that's going to bring about. I would say that that's what's led me to being center director of Animus Center for Coaching, is saying yes to opportunities, seeking out connections, seeing where they lead to, creating relationships, looking at what they bring, and just kind of going, oh, that's that, oh, that's opened that door, oh, that's opened that door, oh, there's three doors open, oh, can I go through all three at the same time, or do I need to choose one? Okay, which one calls to me the most? All right, I'll go for that one for now. And kind of allowing it to flow and unfold. And I think that also might sit with one's personality, because some of my friends have a very clear pathway that they want to walk
Mm,
and what they want to achieve. And I have big things that I want to achieve, but I don't always know where it's going. And then those big things shift and turn as different things happen or different opportunities come away. And I'm quite open to that. And for some people that can be challenging or annoying, I guess.
yeah, yeah. No, I love that. The beautiful synchronicities of life, aren't
Mm,
they? And we've got a session on Friday about living intuitively. So we'll be getting into that,
nice.
listening to the
Nice.
call, and yeah, and allowing things to naturally unfold. So thank you. Okay, well, I'm going to turn to the community and see if
Hmm.
anyone has any questions they want to ask. And I'm just going to tune into the group on my phone. Because I haven't quite worked out how to do it both on the same screen at the same time. Oops. Okay. Any questions, drop them into the chat bar. I know there is a bit of a time delay between Zoom and Facebook. So hi Anna, hi Shahed, hi Mafalda. I think there's a few other people watching. No questions at the moment. Well, I do have a quick fire questions for you. So
Mm.
community, I'll give you a couple of minutes to think of any other questions you might have. So, okay, these are the quick fire questions I've been asking all of our guests this week.
Okay.
No pressure. So the first one is, what's your favorite mantra or quote?
Mantra or quote? I don't know it off by heart, but it comes from the work of Brené Brown and Daring Greatly, and this idea of being in the arena.
Mm,
I think it was a quote from Roosevelt. I'm not 100% sure, but this idea that if we're on the sidelines watching, when we're not in the game, we're
mm,
not in life. So how do we get in there? How do we get in the arena? And how do we take part
mm,
in what's happening? And it's one of those things that I guess comes from my sort of theatrical background as well. It's like you can watch others on stage and talk about what they're doing well or badly, but are you getting on stage too?
mm,
You know, are you in that space? And so yeah, it's being in the arena, it's taking part, it's taking the blows, getting knocked down, getting back up again. It's yeah, being part of that fight or that life or that
mm.
experience.
Yes, I love that. I mean, I love Brene and I love that quote, and I can't remember it either word for word, but I just love that idea of being experiencing life, not being an
Mm,
observer of it,
mm.
actually being in it. So
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's so easy to become an observer. It's so easy to get caught up in work or
mm,
family or whatever that the thing might be, and then kind of look up and go, oh, I haven't been living. I've just been doing for
yeah.
a while, and then go right. So and so there are habits or things that I go right. How's that going to pull me back into life? How's that going to pull me back into living and experiencing?
Absolutely. Okay, which book has had the greatest impact on you and why?
I read so much. I do a lot of listening to books. I'm a big Audible fan. So there are lots of books that have sort of impacted on me. I think Daring Greatly had a huge impact to me, especially the elements where they talked about the armor that we wear
Mm,
and how we get so used to wearing the armor that we don't even notice it we're wearing it anymore. And when we start to take away that armor, we start to recognize the weight that we've been carrying around with us.
mm.
So that's one of those. Uh, there's what was that other book that I really liked? Patrick Lencioni, the five dysfunctions of it was either of a team or a CEO.
It's
Like,
the first one, the main one is the team. Five
yeah,
dysfunctions of the team. Yeah.
yeah, I really loved that. It really kind of made me go, "Oh my gosh, look at what we're doing! Look at how dysfunctional we're being without even noticing it." I remember it really threw some really big light bulbs in how teams work. For me, that was a really good one for me. What else has there been that's really kind of fired me up? Because I think for me, what I kind of noticed there would be bits of a book that I go, oh wow, that just that sentence,
Mm,
the book's been worth it just for that moment, as opposed to all the other parts of it and all the other elements to the book. Um, one of the books that I really love is the Alchemist. The idea of what you're looking for is where you are, but you have to go on the journey to
mm,
recognize that. I guess it's really similar to the whole hero's journey stuff. Is often we come back to where we started, but we are different having gone on the journey.
yes.
We change having gone through that process, and I really like that idea. So the Alchemist, the hero's journey, that kind of what's our calling? How do we answer that call? How do we say yes to opportunity? How does that then change us and therefore change how we see the world? And then when we come back to the real world, as it were,
Mm,
we see it differently. And when we see it differently, we are changed. And sometimes that means we have to move on. I
mm,
always think there's something really interesting about when friends transition away from each other,
mm,
recognizing that it's never for good. It's like just a transition in a moment in time, and then you'll shift back again in a different way, or they will spiral off because they've changed. They see the world differently, or you do. I think it's one of the things about when you become a coach, you 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 begin to see the world differently,
mhm,
and in that seeing the world differently, it creates a shift in you. And sometimes people can't handle that shift in you, or that shift in you causes them to question themselves, and they don't want to question themselves just yet. They're not ready for that. So they then find that difficult or challenging, and so they might spiral away from you. So that there's, yeah, so that sort of concept, I really liked. I was just flicking through my book list and going, oh, what are the other ones I've read that I've really liked? Oh, there was a book that I like, and I can't really tell you why I like it or what I get from it, but I'm once a year I'll reread it, and that's The Inside Out Revolution by
Okay.
Michael Neal.
Yeah.
So I sort of read it and kind of get it, but don't get it. And then every time I read it, there's something in it that really kind of sits with me each time I kind of go through it. And that whole idea of this inside out revolution, and that it's, we're joining these dots that create this line, this plane of who we are. And each thought is each moment is a thought away from change, from difference.
Mm.
And it's about how we're thinking and how we're showing up. I sort of love those sorts of ideas. So I could go on and on and on about books. Yeah.
I keep
Oh, I guess.
there and then having a stash to read. I think I'm going to have to do Jim Quick's speed reading.
I think one of the things I love about books is, so I have paper books that I read, and I have books that I'll listen to, and then I'll sort of leave one for a while and then come back to it, and then kind of go, oh, I didn't finish that book, let me go back to it. And then there'll be books where I'll push myself to read, because I want to get through it, because I want to try and understand something in it. I just remember that the Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway was a
Mm,
classic for me. And often as coaches, we're working with our coachees to not remove fear, but
mm,
to allow it to exist and still step forward. And I guess that's the courage bit, is to go, this frightens me, but I'm going to do it anyway.
yeah,
um,
yeah.
and having a coach to support you along that doing it anyway
Mm,
is great and fundamental. I remember Nash Popovich talking about this, that coaching isn't just about setting somebody off on their journey, it's about supporting somebody on their journey.
mm, mm. So true, so true. Fantastic, thank you. And then the last question from me, and I can see a couple of comments have come in. Last question from me is, what one learning have you had that you would share with humanity? It's a quick fire question.
That's a huge question.
Huge question.
I guess I guess one of that is, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Mm,
So I guess it might be, don't believe the stories that you tell yourself.
mm,
Because one of my big loves is narrative coaching, and the stories that we tell ourselves, and how those stories impact how we show up and what we do. And we can get so caught up in our internal chatter and the story of something that we can turn into this huge thing,
mm.
and then never face it, because we go, I can't deal with that. And sometimes when we're forced to face things, we go, oh, that was okay.
Yeah.
Telling that person what I thought was okay. Telling my boss, challenging my boss, that was okay.
Mm,
Talking to my partner about X, Y, Z, that actually it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So I guess something for me is, don't necessarily believe the stories that we tell ourselves,
mm.
or
So
question the stories that we tell ourselves. Challenge those stories.
yeah, yeah. That's fantastic, and it just sort of pinged off a thought. We had a mindfulness session yesterday as well, around being in the moment, because we can deal with the moment. It's the fear of the future, or the ruminating
Hmm.
over the past. It's we can deal with what's in front of us in the moment, and you're right, it's never as bad as we think it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things that I'm really trying to explore right now and hold on to is being able to flip between the big picture and the detail. What are we doing right now in this moment, and then where are we going? What's the
Mm,
purpose of that? And then, okay, let's come back to that detail and being able to shift between those two viewpoints, so you
mm,
don't get stuck in one or the other.
yeah, so important, so important. Great, thank you so much. Right, let's just go across to the comments. So Maxine has said, really interesting. Thank you, Robert. Instead of opening with the traditional, what do you want to achieve from coaching question, do you have an alternative suggestion for imitating the transformational coaching conversation?
I guess a question might be what's brought you here today.
Mm,
A question might be what's going on for you right now. When I did the work with David Drake, he often talked about the most important thing is the thing that's happening for you right now. So you don't, sometimes you say to a client, what would you like to work on? They go, and they have to think about it. Then
mm,
it's not front of mind.
mm,
So what's happening for you right now?
mm,
Let's kind of really situate in where we are to understand where we are in the world, in the universe, in our environment, in our system, and then from that we can then extrapolate. So what do we want to change?
mm,
Where do we want to go? What do we want to shift?
Wonderful, thank you. Shah Heads asked the question, how have you resolved a transformation issue with a particularly resistant client?
So I don't think there is resistance. I think I've heard or read, it said, oh, that person's resistant to change. And I go, they're not resistant to change. Maybe they're not ready for change, or maybe they haven't understood what that change will bring them. Or maybe, we might term somebody as resistant because they don't actually want to do that thing.
Mm,
I remember working with a client a few years ago, and a gentleman that was referred to me to do some work about getting a job, and so we were like, right, so you want to get a job? And he's like, yeah, I want to get a job. And I was like, brilliant, okay. And we talk about stuff and work on things, and then he'd go, right, these are the things that I'm going to do to help me get a job. And come back the next week, and none of those things happened. And about 3 or 4 weeks in, I went, I don't believe you. I
mm,
don't believe you want a job. I don't know what you want, but I don't believe that. Why are you here?
mm,
Why are you here? And he said, well, the reason I'm really here, if I'm honest with you, Rob, is because my partner sent me. I
mm,
was like, right, tell me a bit more about that. And they were like, well, I don't have a job. I sit at home all day and I play PlayStation and I don't do anything. And my partner's frustrated with that.
mm,
And I went, okay, so you don't want a job. So that's why, so one might say they were resistant to getting a job or
mm,
resistant to doing the work that got them the job because that wasn't the thing they actually wanted.
mm,
They wanted something else. They wanted the freedom to be at home, um, eating popcorn and crisps, playing PlayStation. And then the coaching shifted into so how does one have that discussion with their partner?
mm,
And how do you get your needs met of having that space to do that? But also how might you support them getting their needs met around security, um, around tidiness, whatever that is. And it became a really, really different conversation. And that's when the coaching came alive because we were working with the real thing, not the
mm,
false thing.
mm,
So sometimes that idea of resistance is because we're working not on the thing. We're working on something that's an excuse or a shadow of the real uh, space to be working on.
mm. So true. Great. Maxine said thank you. I think that's it for all the questions. Okay, so well, thank you once again for spending this time with us, Robert. And if anybody wants to get in touch with you or find out anything more about Animas, what's the best way that they could do that?
Yeah, so if they want to find out about Animus, the best thing to do is pop on over to our website, Animus Coaching, and all the information is there about what we do and how we do it. And our free introduction day is in that space as well, so they can look at that to come along and hear a little bit more about what we do. If people want to connect with me directly, I'm in all the usual spaces, but mainly actually LinkedIn and Instagram are my kind of places I frequent the most. Facebook's kind of more of my sort of family space, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, thanks everyone. And for the community, our summit carries on. So tomorrow we've got a session starting at 2 o'clock with a rush talking all about the Matrix. We're diving into the Matrix. Yeah, how deep does the rabbit hole go?
It goes all the way. It's all the way.
It's all the way. So that one will be fun. And we've also got Melissa Haig, who's going to be talking about vulnerability. So Melissa trains
Nice.
with Brene, and is a Dare to Lead facilitator. And I think she's soon to do some training for Animas as well. So
Yes.
we've got her coming along tomorrow. So
Awesome. Wow. Lots of exciting stuff.
good stuff. Yeah. Thanks so much. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Cheers.
If you'd like to get in touch, drop me an email or contact me on one of the social media platforms. And if you'd like to find out more information about working with me, check out the services that I offer on my website, joyfulminds.co.uk. And I look forward to meeting you soon.